All right, so we're still figuring out what we're going to do for the next hour because what we had planned doesn't work with the lack of participation in the way that we need it to be to host an hour that we had planned during this time. So we're figuring something else out. So we are joined by Sam, who has a project called Board at Home. Is that right?
Yeah, boardathome.org.
All right. So can you tell us about the project, what it is?
So basically, it's introducing people to the Game B space in a, I don't know if you'd say the Game B space, but just more of a civically minded, oriented space, and trying to do that in a way that is accessible makes the whole thing more easily approachable to people without using, the term Game B, for example. And I suppose the idea is it's come from a few different things, and now obviously with the coronavirus, it's kind of this board at home thing seems to fit. And I've just decided to go with that because I'm quite indecisive anyway. But so yeah, I feel like it's an open source thing. I don't really feel like it's my project. I'm open to anyone else's thoughts. So I've got like a general vision, but yeah.
Do you want to share your general vision, and then we can, if you want.
Yeah. So basically, thinking a website which will introduce the ideas in basic terms, and then kind of say, well, we're all kind of bored, and we've got problems to solve. So, and here are all the things that we've got at our fingertips to help solve them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, so in some ways it's to inspire people at first, and then it will lead into, essentially it'll lead into two actions that people can do. One of them would be, I'll start with myself. So they can be given two options once they've been inspired, assuming that, they do feel inspired. They'll, on the website itself, they'll be given the option to start with themselves. So that would lead into possible, just things that help us do things better generally. A few things I thought of were like yoga and meditation, especially with people being bored. It may help them deal with it. But obviously that helps with our thinking and everything. So that would be the personal option. And then the second option, which is really the main one, would be leading people to, so I've got the design up here and it says, I want to connect with others. And then that would lead people to an overview of the kind of ecosystem of Game B. So I actually imagined it as having you'd be able to choose a category of, because I think everyone's different. Everyone's interested in different things. Like just as individuals, some people are quite liberty-minded, and other people are more concerned about the environment. And so I thought that they would be able to click what they were interested in, and then it would show them the groups that kind of came under that general category. And then obviously that will lead them to, say, wherever that particular group is based online. So it may be the Facebook group, or it may be Telegram, or anywhere where the kind of locus of communication is happening. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Do you have any questions about that?
No questions at all. I was more taking notes on what you were saying rather than generating questions at that exact moment. April, do you have any questions?
No questions. I do like the approach of like not just saying here's what work needs to be done, but also the like, I guess the easier, like here's other stuff that you can do at home. So it becomes just, a homepage for things to do when you're bored at home. And one of those things might be helping with GameBee projects. I do love,
Yeah.
I like that approach.
Yes, I as well. I like the idea of having options for people to work on themselves and having people work on tasks, whether that's a one-off task or projects in general, and being able to guide people towards it. That is similar to ideas I think we have been working on, or at least I've been working on, is like how to bring people together and how the communication piece. I would love to hear more about how far you are on it and what you need for it to be moved forward.
Yeah, I think I've been worried that I'd lose focus, so I'm just trying to get maybe not everything into the first iteration of it. I did think that, so it would lead people to the categories of the different projects, which could be an idea, or it could actually be an actual project where people are looking for people to help with it. That kind of splits off into potentially adding like a job listing section. So obviously you can drill down further into the thing, but to start with, I basically I'm probably not too far off on having built the website. I suppose I need. Sorry.
Will people be able to go to it and use it?
Sorry, did you say when?
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping actually by the end of next week.
Okay.
In its kind of simple format. And then obviously but in terms of things I need, I think I asked if anyone had any projects open, and I have a few ideas for projects myself, but I thought it could be like an idea repository as well as acting as a kind of channeling people through to these communities, because often ideas get lost, don't they? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting off track. What was the question?
We do that a lot.
Yeah.
What was the question? It's a good question, and it was, I don't know, because I did not write it down.
Oh, well, that's fine.
It was when we can use it, and you had answered it. It was a week.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So obviously the GameBee section, with the categories and entries of projects, there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. So I need to create a little database or just a spreadsheet of the currently open projects, and obviously there may be projects out there that aren't within our kind of sphere of perception. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of new to this GameBee space, so I'm not too familiar with some of your guys' projects, but they sound really good actually. But I'm not. I haven't been looking.
Yeah.
So
we have projects that, like I said, we keep talking about them. Like we're just trying to figure it out for our 3, which doesn't work. We need other people's. But I forgot that maybe you didn't know what those were. Do we each want to give a 1-minute overview? Or do you want to hear a 1-minute overview of what our projects are, Sam?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right. Who wants to start?
Bentley, you can go first if you want. Oh, I think you're hard muted.
Sound's not working. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
So while that figures out, Adriel, you go first.
All right, sure.
Back at
So my project is called WikiLection. It is like the main goal is to fight misinformation. And it does that by focusing on the evidence available for things like politics, science, and news.
Great.
And I don't think I can go a layer deeper without talking about it for minutes. So that's good. Hello.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Jubilee, do you want to?
my current project is solution raising. So I have had 6 conversations on various sectors of the world, and with other people within an hour come up with a potential adjacent solution we could accomplish if we had 10,000 people and $100,000. And so we've come up with like ones for transportation and food and education, and they're all things that are absolutely possible right now if we actually had 10,000 people and $100,000. And so now I'm looking at how do we actually create that? How do we bring 10,000 people together? Or how do we start to build towards that? And how do we start to build towards finding funding?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great.
Let us know about yours.
So my project is Reason to Score. It's very similar to Adriel's, and actually it would kind of be a feature of his site and similar sites where it's a place that people can discuss contentious issues, and instead of exploring opinions, it kind of helps people explore and categorize the facts and the information, and then it tracks a score so that people can make sense of a lot of information much more quickly than having to read it all. So that's the idea.
Yeah, that sounds great. Could I just ask, because obviously with this project that I'm looking at, it's obviously, is there anything are you guys interested in having more people to talk about your projects and, bounce ideas around, or is there something else that you need for your respective projects?
I mean, I need other people to co-create what 10,000 people and $100,000 looks like, and participate in the solution raising and improving the solution raising together. How do we have an hour-long conversation that people want to be part of and generates an idea? And then how do we actually move that idea towards existing in the real world? And that's stuff that I think we need to come up with together, which means we need it together. We need people who are invested in it.
Yeah, and for my project, it's always good to have more kind of people involved. I'm sure Adriel and I could both use more developers, but also just people who would be willing to try a beta tool and give feedback and participate in its development by ideas and just giving feedback. And actual users would always be helpful. I'm not quite there yet, but we'll be soon. So, and then, we're all passionate about this area, so we enjoy helping each other out and other projects. So that would be in, Jubilee's project. We enjoy participating in that.
Yeah, Matt. Shiloh, do you have a project you want to tell us about?
I'd probably say I don't really have a project right now. I kind of have a vision of a different social structure than we are living under right now. But it does seem to involve all of your different projects. So I'm just curious, still learning what you're all doing. Supportive. I might have a project, but it's on the back burner. So we'll talk about it if I feel closer. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
I guess. All right, so we've talked about Sam's idea for his project, and we kind of turned this into a bit of a project raising. However, now that there's 5 of us, I have a question, which is this 9 o'clock in the morning is a time that we had kind of set aside for figuring out the meta project, right? Like how we actually create something together that facilitates all of our projects. Is that something that people would be interested in, is meeting during this time and having a type of mastermind group, or co-creating what that looks like? What would be the most powerful thing to move our projects forward as the steward of that project, right? As the person who can get help from other people, but like you're the one taking that on. And how do we find other people to, hopefully, in my case anyway, I want other people participating in creating it together. Like how we get together and brainstorm solutions to the next thing we have a problem with right now. Does that make sense?
Are you asking, is that how we want to use this time today or in general?
Both,
Lost
Bentley. All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah. Because if we have people, even 5 people, and meeting and talking about their project and the pitfalls and how we co-create solutions together, I think we're getting value out of it. And the audience might also be getting value out of it, in that they might be able to find projects. They might be the people, right, who come to whatever we create. And they might have projects themselves and want to participate in it, and can brainstorm ideas of how to improve this process, right? How to brainstorm with the audience, how to, I don't know, many options.
Yeah, I like using this time for that, both as like a kind of a mastermind group, if people are familiar with that term, and also just kind of point out something y'all have already thought about too, as well, as that as Sam's describing his project, that's very similar to what we have already kind of been discussing, a central repository for projects, and how people can help and stuff. So yeah, I think it could be both and all the above.
I think what might help, because we've tried to go through a few different iterations of, oh, hey, let's try this. And then we show up and there's not enough people, or there's not enough interest to actually do that thing. I almost wonder if we want like a flow chart, for lack of a better term, that says, here's the things that we can use the session for. And we have our ideal spot where it's like, if we get, 5 or 6 people and they have projects and all this stuff, then we do this kind of a session. If we don't have, quorum for that, then you go to a smaller session. And so it's sort of a consecutively smaller group of things where in the end, the people who show up regularly, if it's just me, Jubilee, and Bentley, then that's a certain kind of a meeting where maybe it's not our favorite, but we can do it anyway. And then as more people show up, there's different sort of check boxes. Oh, look, we have enough people to do this thing. Let's have that kind of a session instead.
Yeah,
or we figure out there are 5 of us. If this time works for us, how do we co-create this hour for the next 3 weeks, or the next, if it's every other week, you know what I mean? Next, every other week for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. That, how do we want to participate in this? How would it give us the most benefit as project holders to create something we want to be a part of, right? What would that mastermind group look like? So we want to show up and be part of it and help our own project, but also help other people's, right? Like there's not a project here that I don't think would be of benefit to the world, and I want to help get out into the world, right? So how do we create it to work for ourselves, our projects, and the meta project? What does this hour look like that you would want to continue to come back for?
I suppose I've just kind of learnt about your guys' ideas, and over the next week, there'll be a few connections that happen in my brain, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone else. So maybe just to, like you say, brainstorm, but maybe there's a bit more of a see what happens kind of aspect to it. I don't know.
So the format that I kind of like is kind of the standard mastermind format, where it's, we can all give a 1 or 2 minute update of what we progressed on in the last week, and then one person can say, I have a problem, and then we all kind of brainstorm helping that individual on that problem. And oftentimes the problems are shared, so working through someone's problem would help ours. So I guess I'd like to throw that out as a format to start with, or other ideas.
Sounds kind of perfect for a project meeting. I hadn't actually heard the mastermind group like explained in sort of a short form. That helped. So yeah, that sounds awesome.
There's
Like
a
if we
couple
can
of
actually get
different
enough
formats. That's the hot seat format.
Okay.
Is that something that Shiloh, what do you think? And Sam, what do you think? Or how that looks? Do you want to add to it? Or
That sounds really good, actually. Bentley said, yeah, how you summarized it.
all right, we can try it out.
Yeah. The one thing I also want to mention is kind of excited the fact that we have someone here who doesn't really have like a project explicitly, because we've been trying to get someone to kind of play the like project volunteer side, to say like what would it take to get you involved in a project, what would it, because I would help with a project, but it's not my focus. My focus is, actually working on the projects that I've already done. So I think it's harder for me to put myself in the shoes of somebody that might go to a board at home or a Together Tech and say, I'm bored at home, I want some work to do, what can I help with? And so that's something that I think it's important that is sort of in there as well, even if the person who's acting as the volunteer might not give a project update, that they might have a different role in there. But I think it's important to have them involved at every step and to sort of make sure that they're baked into that approach, because I think that's half the battle. Like I know Bentley, Julie and I, and soon Sam, one of our ongoing things that we need is an audience, is people, to both just show up and show interest, but also to actually help out, because unlike Bentley, I have a tech thing and I'm not a coder even, so I really need help.
And yeah, on that point, I am also working with some startups in the area. I'm mentoring 4 or 5 of them, and they're mostly non-technical founders. So we might start spending some time on finding reliable resources for low-cost development, because there's a lot out there, but a lot of it, I've heard lots and lots of horror stories. So that may be one project I'm going to be working on soon. I really don't want to spend time on it, but there's such a need of non-technical founders of being able to vet technical resources. Now, many of us don't have the funding in our projects to do that, but for those that do, it might be helpful.
So is that, just so I'm sort of aware, like back end, is that more like if you're a non-technical founder and you need technical work done, the kind of questions you might ask on a site like Upwork?
Yeah, kind of how to protect yourself in those situations, how to handle that project. But also,
Okay, cool.
I'm hoping we'll actually have some vendors that will be vetting. So if I got like 5 startups, and there's, right now we're focusing on local in Dallas just to start, but we might each try one different vendor and then come back together and rate them all, and then see if we can get some vendors that we have experience in with saying, because advice on finding people is helpful, but to be given a list of validated vendors, I think would be helpful, or finding if there's already a resource that does that, but I haven't really found it. And I've actually had horror, I've been doing software development for 20 years and managing teams for 15, and I still had a horror story 2 years ago. So I think it's mostly random right now on whether you get a good team.
I see. So like the actual sort of teams or developers on a site like Upwork creating a dictionary of like, oh, that team is great, that team maybe not so good in these areas, so that you have a listing.
Yeah.
That
And
would be super useful.
there's reviews on the sites and stuff that kind of do that, but what it comes down to though is that different teams work in different circumstances. So if you're a technical person, I'm going to have any developers I hire, I will be able to manage more easily than you. So
Right.
for the non-technical founders, you need that extra project management layer. So the question is, which teams, their development processes are mature enough that a non-technical founder can hit the ground running,
Right.
and which teams aren't. And then there's just yeah. Also, a lot of them, everyone says they can do every technology, but my problem was the guy said he knew the tech, and then a couple weeks into it, he like spent a week doing something that the tech had built in already done, and I'm like, I thought you said you knew this tech. So, and the realization that you have to meet with him every day. You do have to, like one person said, I didn't really want to have to babysit this team, and I'm like, well, I don't want to either, but they don't know your business and they don't know what's going on. It still takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And then the whole translation thing. So yeah, working out those issues. I don't know what
I
solution
think that's
is.
super valuable because on a site like Upwork, I find it's a lot like, let's say something like Uber, where there's a real pressure to give somebody 5 stars. Like it's sort of the built-in thing. It's kind of expected, which kind of makes the 5-star almost like the baseline. Like 4-star, I guess, maybe. And then after that, you aren't getting any work.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's kind of trying to find the good people who actually fill those check boxes that you're talking about. Like, can they work with somebody who's maybe not an experienced founder who's led dev teams? Are they good at that part of it? And internally, without affecting their score on Upwork or wherever, are they actually 5 stars, or is that just being nice?
Yeah, right. And are they 5 stars in the specific tech you need?
Right. True.
Yeah, I think that would provide value. I don't know any way I could make money doing it, but but also right now I want to focus. I barely got 18 hours working on Reason Score last week, and I'd rather have it be 40. So I really don't want another project. I want to help you guys out an hour a week, but I don't want to take on a whole nother thing, but I might just because it's so needed.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like an incredibly important layer to something like Together Tech, and possibly even Board at Home. So if there's any any online meetings being set up or something, I'd be interested in participating in that as well.
Yeah, and with Together Tech, at some point we'll want to be. I think the goal was to be, raising money from the people that want to use the tech, and then hiring technical people. And I was hoping I could, fund myself a little bit that way, but we'll need more resources at some point. So having a process that vets technical resources and
something we could actually create that is a labor platform specifically designed for tech people to create teams to be able to vet people on the various skills, right? Like how good are they at this various software actually, and price accordingly, but created with and for the tech teams, like to be able to actually get people to work who are bored at home, and then also getting access to the labor that you need to be able to easily.
Now, I'm interested to hear what people think about how is this different, or is this different than like a project trying to record how a volunteer did at something, right? So let's say, like, as a project owner, I say, I really need help with marketing. And so I put it out on whatever platform, and somebody raises their hand and says, sure, I can help. And they do it. And then as a project owner, I'll get a sense, hopefully, for like, wow, this person is great at doing this. I felt like they were a real, asset to the team, and I want to keep working with them, as opposed to, I'm not sure if they just didn't get what we were going for, or they're not actually as good at marketing as they thought they were, but like, no thanks, I'll keep looking. So, and that kind of level where it helps the, if you're a project owner and you see that somebody who's volunteered has worked on 5 other projects and they've all said, yeah, that person's good, that says one thing. Or if the person has no history / 3 bad ones, you're like, maybe, have you done any work since then? Or are there any other areas you want to help with?
Yeah, I don't think there's any differences between marketing, sales, and tech. Just in all of those areas, I think things need to be broken down in level of detail. But because in the technology side, we might say, oh, the languages and the frameworks and the databases, but in marketing, there's business to business and business to consumer, and then there's also all the different technologies. Like I know how to use HubSpot, right? And this other person. So yeah, there's no difference. I think the reason why those systems are right now often focused on different, like either tech or finding admins and stuff. I guess Upwork actually spans all that.
Right. Right.
But
So
yeah.
to be clear, that I hadn't even thought of, but that's super useful. I guess my question is the teams, like the Upwork teams, trying to go out and look at 10 different development teams and record how good they are at what they say they're doing. Would that same system be useful / should we use the exact same system for tracking like the individual volunteers or possibly even people that we hire? I guess to sort of say like, do we want to track individuals the same way as teams and have that same sort of a system regardless if you're paying them or not?
Yeah, I would actually always grade on the individual level rather than on the team level. I was mentioning teams, but
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, because you might have
Sometimes
somebody
you
on a
can't,
team,
though.
you're like,
Sometimes
that
you
person's a
can't.
rock star.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
sometimes.
can't grade on the individual level because if a team's working on it and a team creates it, unless they're willing to break it down, and even then it's not necessarily reliable.
Yeah.
You can know who did what if it's a very structured task, but not if it's
You track both. So you track like, here's the team, here's what kind of the stuff they did, and then here's the individuals. And then you can start to see like, oh, look, that person, they failed as a part of that team, but they were great as a part of these 10 teams. So like maybe they just shouldn't be a part of that team, or, it was a different like language than they were used to, or whatever it is. But yeah, I think you track both levels, and then you can start to, after a couple projects, learn some stuff from the data.
I think having the teams be how we're kind of currently talking about it, where it's we're hiring them, right? We're the boss and we're deciding, do they have enough stars? Do they have enough? Having it be created from the opposite direction of we have tens of thousands of people who want to volunteer. How do they find teams and how do they know what they're good at so they can contribute in that way? And so how do you help them figure out where they are 5 stars or where they have the most potential for that, and have it in a way that isn't, you need to be 5 stars in these 5 areas because otherwise no one's going to hire you. And instead it's like, no, we want to know the truth. We want to know where we're good at so we feel good contributing, and where a team's going to work really well together, and where if someone has a track record as someone who's possibly putting together a team and paying them to do a project. But then you get it created from this, because otherwise who's going to come on board for like, oh, you're going to rate me. Great. That sounds awesome. Please do that.
I think also the rating has to go both ways. Because if I, as a project owner, I'm like 1 star, 1 star, and everyone's like, this guy's an asshole, then people probably shouldn't work for that project.
Yeah, that's all valid and excellent points, Ghibli. The things that we have to kind of work around with that is kind of that Dunning-Kruger effect, where people tend to overestimate themselves. I know I have throughout my whole life. But there's going to be challenges any direction you go, but I like the idea of, that it's a platform to help people find where they can provide value. And then, these titles of software developer really is meaningless. I think that the more granular you get and say, oh, I know JavaScript front end work, right? The more detailed you can get, the better, because the roles are each kind of, there might be someone who can do these 2 things, but maybe it is a team of 2 people that have these skill sets that does the same thing. So really what you need is a conglomeration of multiple people working together, and their combined skill sets get that project done. But the titles right now are really too big. And now there's a lot of, I do want to caveat this with there are a lot of people out there kind of tackling this issue. I've heard a couple startup pitches recently, so we definitely don't want to go just reinventing the wheel and look and see what's out there. But I'd be surprised if there's anything out of the box that worked. But
is there from that direction though? There's definitely from the Upwork. Are you hiring this person and are they 5 stars? But not from the, how do you help people find where they're good and where they're needed?
Yeah, and the volunteer layer, which is something that, of course, Upwork is missing.
I think I have seen kind of the volunteer piece, but I don't think I've seen anyone focusing it from the direction of the volunteer or the I don't know how you use that word other than volunteer/employee, but the participant, as opposed to the person needing the work done. Yeah. No, I haven't seen that specifically. But a lot of the tools that they're doing, we'd still want to look and learn from the things. I think a lot of
Yeah,
it would
absolutely.
be research, and also just to point out that kind of research on what's out there, that doesn't have to be a technical person, right? Any of us that's interested in it can do that.
Interested to hear from Sam and Shiloh. Sam, I guess, is a project person, and Shiloh is are project people talking at this level. Is that interesting? Is that off-putting? What's the?
For me, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I am not a technical person, so there's a lot of things you're talking about that I don't know, like Upwork, and I mean, I can kind of figure out what you're talking about. It's still kind of vague, and I don't know. I do probably have a lot to add, but I still am feeling everything out and not sure exactly where to put my energy. I really like what Jubilee was saying about kind of from the bottom up, a different way than the top down of like rating someone and only these people on the project or whatever. I like the idea of having this under structure where you can volunteer in places that fit you, but yet where do you find that? So
Right.
I'm very much, for me, I'm a hands-on, not online person. I like to, I mean, if I'm going to work on a project, I want to be able to physically do something on it. I'm probably not the best person to judge this, but that's my input. So.
Thank
Well,
you.
to be clear, that's a skill set that we'll end up needing. So the person who's not online, the person like that's still very valuable insight.
Yeah, just to define terms, that's good that you pointed that out, Shello, because sometimes we're using terminology that not everyone knows. But Upwork's a site where you can hire people for short-term contracts. So freelancer, Upwork, LinkedIn, maybe, like that.
Yeah, and it's global. So like at work, I hire people to work on data from like the Philippines and India, right? So that's it's inexpensive data work for stuff that maybe the company can't justify spending like a lot of money on. But then there's also like $1,000 an hour lawyers and everywhere in between. So it's meant to be that a person can sort of set, here's what my skill sets are, here's my rate. And then as a person who's needing work done, I can go and search for someone or post a job and say, I need this done. Either, I'm paying $1,000 or, I need this done. Please send in your quotes.
Cool. I'll have to check it out. Thanks, you guys. And I kind of missed what Sam's project was. And I don't know if you can summarize it or if I can just check later and watch the video. Just wanted to set that.
Either way. Sam, what's it?
So in a nutshell, it's basically a website to guide people into the Game B space in an accessible way without using any jargon or anything, and just kind of switch people on to being a bit more civic minded and maybe channel that into some of the communities that we've got going. Essentially, yeah.
All right.
So I'm just wondering, we talked about at the beginning what this hour could look like. And then we went off on my favorite kind of tangent of the kind of things that we can create. Do we want to, in the last 20 minutes, actually do a mini mastermind group that, like, what that would look like? Or did we already, because we introduced our projects and kind of said what we mostly.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we could step through it again, and it might come out a little different.
Okay.
So to reiterate, I think usually a mastermind is closed group, so you don't have to describe your project each time. But since we're doing this as an open thing, it might be good every time to give the 1 sentence or 2 sentence description of your project, which would also be good for us to craft that. And then kind of say either, what you've accomplished since the last meeting, and maybe what you're going to accomplish before the next meeting if you want that accountability. That's not obligatory, but and then if you want to, you could also kind of state a problem. And then usually what we do is even before the meeting, one person, the way this format is, one person is kind of designated to bring their problem, and then everyone helps them work on that problem. We could already kind of say that that's Sam's project on, because that's kind of the focus of this meeting outside of that. So we might do it that way and just figure out if Sam needs any next step help or if he just wants feedback. So that's the format. Any questions? And then I can kind of start off. Okay. We already did our pitches, although if you want to do a 1 sentence one to practice, that would be good. So reason scores, actually, I don't know which 1 sentence I'm going to give, so I'm not going to give it again. Because the problem is mine has like 4 or 5 different uses because it's the base technology, so I might give a different pitch each time. There's not one. The one pitch that covers the whole system is too vague to be meaningful. But it's a system that helps people agree on contentious issues. It's one of the systems that does that. And this last week, like I said, I spent about 18 hours. I'm rewriting the back end to give more flexibility so that I can add new features going forward. I was hoping to be done at the end of this week, but I wasn't. So by the next meeting, I hope to have a fully working prototype on the new back end and maybe some of the new features. I can go into more detail, but I'll leave it to other people. So Adriel, maybe you?
Sure. So my 1 sentence, WikiLection is a platform that's meant to fight misinformation in politics, science, and news. The stuff that I'm doing now is I do a weekly, or I guess a bi-weekly live stream on the 4 different core modules where I cycle through them to sort of talk about them in more detail and kind of hash out my explanation of them. So I've got a slide deck that I go through and update, and then in the alternating topics, I go through that part of the slide deck and explain it in a bit more detail and figure out what I might want to improve for next time. And last session was actually awesome because I had somebody from the Game B space attend as a guest and just ask a bunch of questions, and that was insanely valuable. For me, the next step is during this lockdown, working on the sort of first draft of the specs, because as I said, I'm not a coder. So my role there is I draft a document that explains how a coder would actually build it and what it needs to be able to do. And then I'll be putting that on probably Upwork to actually get some coding started during this lockdown. That's my next step.
Right. My project is solution raisings, what is the elevator pitch? In an hour, we come up with a actual adjacent possible solution that we could accomplish together if we had 10,000 people and $100,000. And what I have been doing over the last little while is hosting them. We've had 6 of them. And I am also going live nightly during the lockdown pandemic to figure out how can we create that together? How can we crowdsource the crowd? How can we figure out how to involve people in creating something together that isn't what we've done so far on the planet? What I'm doing next is hosting the next solution raising on solution raisings themselves. What have we been doing? What's working, what's not? How can we improve it? And how could we maybe potentially get 10,000 people and $100,000? So that is what I'm doing. And I don't really have a problem that needs to get solved, because that is the problem. And I think it will be solved by going live nightly and having more and more people join and having people guest host and just creating that time, kind of like what we're doing here, but creating that time for it to be for the public. How does the public engage in creating something together?
I guess I can just give you an update. I'm a visual artist. I'm currently making a lot of paintings, kind of in a symbolic way, introducing this new Game Bee, I guess you'd say, new system in the world. So I'm always working on my paintings. This week, I'm actually working with a carpenter to make large 4-foot by 5-foot wood panels, so I can get some bigger paintings out there, and that's what I'm working on. So, and my bigger goal is to eventually have an art show where I can introduce these types of things to a more general public audience in person instead of just online. So it's just another way to build more support for this type of system. So, thanks.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, so I suppose doing this for the exercise of, is that right? Yeah. So I suppose it's a civic onboarding website essentially, and I'm in the process of building it. Hopefully, get something live by the end of next week. I'm always kind of excuse me, open to critique on things, but maybe once I've got the first iteration, that would be a good time to get that, and things can be easily changed. So yeah, that's where I'm up to.
All right. Awesome. We did it. And it took us, I don't know how much time, because I don't remember when we started, but around that to get to that point, and then we'd have the rest of the hour to concentrate on solutions, on solving the problems that we each brought up. And there was something else I was going to say, and I don't remember. Bentley, take it away.
Yeah. So yeah, normally at that point there would be the person designated, which for this episode could be Sam, or you can always pass, and then we could just talk about which problem idea or which problem we talked about that affected most of us, or we could just decide at that time what to talk about. And so just to kind of go down that path, since we started with Sam, so I guess the next thing would be, once you kind of get an initial. Yeah, so I don't know how far you want to go before getting a lot of feedback. So that would be really kind of up to you. And then, we could share screens on this and walk through it. We could even do that with the images you provided us on Facebook.
Yeah. Do you mean now or another time or?
Yeah, we could, unless anyone else has a topic we want to go over. I think we have about 10 minutes, so we
Yeah.
won't get very far. But
I suppose one kind of issue is that may be solved if you guys wanted to have your projects on there as the start to the database, then that'd be great. Obviously, I don't see it being presented as a database. It'd be more like each entry would have an image to represent it, and it would be kind of appealing visually to kind of encourage people to want to get involved.
yeah.
So you mean like you're showing appropriate information based on who's viewing it?
Basically,
Like if you're a volunteer, you're showed a view that's meant for a volunteer. So like here's things that you can do at home, here's projects you can help with, that kind of thing.
I know what you're saying. I meant more at the top level where people are just viewing the projects that are
right
in existence. So I'd imagined it would be have you ever seen masonry used on a website where it's a set of blocks and then you can click on something and it will rearrange them into a category that you've selected? And it'd be like an image or
I think I've seen something similar.
yeah, I think essentially it'd be like an advert for the project in a square, and it'd be a series of a grid of the different projects. So
Okay.
you've got a list of them essentially.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So obviously I need to populate that grid with something to begin with. So
So we need to answer the questions that you posted in the GameBee projects thing.
yeah, I suppose that'd be a good start. Assuming you do want to have your projects on there. If you want more people around, potentially.
And are you thinking that that the website will be, that the code will kind of be listed somewhere on an open source thing, or are you not taking the time to do that?
Well, I'm just using plugins, so it's nothing that I've actually coded myself. If that's what you mean. It'll be a WordPress website with it's like a directory plugin
Okay.
that allows you to sort things into categories. Yeah.
And I haven't looked to see how easy this is to do it in WordPress. I have a couple WordPress sites I've managed, but I do very little work on them. But I don't know if it supports giving us a login and letting us maintain that. But I think right now you're just talking about, you're going to be kind of probably handcrafting the page, right?
Yeah, actually there is that feature, and guests can create their own things as well. I haven't really tried it out, so there may be obviously caveats to having that fully opened up.
Right.
But yes, I suppose to begin with, I was just going to add things and have it closed, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I could go on and put the answers to your questions in there, and I don't know, Jubilee, if I kind of looked around, I couldn't find that spreadsheet that we posted a while back. I don't know if it's easy for you to pull up.
I did not look around, so I can see if I can find the spreadsheet. Maybe it's one that only I have permission. It's maybe on my drive. Spreadsheet for, I don't even know what to call it. Put together the projects.
Yeah.
And if so, I will send it to Sam. And otherwise, we will fill out what you posted in GameBee projects for our individual projects.
Yeah, that'd be great. I actually, it may be worth me actually showing you how it may be presented, so it gives you an idea, and actually what information should be shown alongside any entries. I don't know. I'll maybe post something like that, maybe a visual of what it may look like.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do that and post that in projects. And I did have a question before we go, which we still have 7 minutes. But are we doing this next week at 9 a.m. or 2 p.m.? Are we going back and forth? Or what are we doing?
Either spot works for me.
We could do 9 a.m., 2 p.m., 9 a.m., 2 p.m. and have...
Yeah. And the 2 p.m., in case you guys are wondering, that helps people in like Australia and stuff join as well. Because the 9 a.m. spot is a little bit too early for them.
Yeah. Whereas at the same time, that does not usually work for people in Europe.
Right.
Some people
Oh,
do,
yeah.
like 10 p.m. their time, but...
Yeah, I suppose 9 a.m. Do you say? It's probably preferable
now.
for me, but it'd probably be flexible. Yeah.
What time zone are you in, Sam?
It's GMT, London,
Oh, okay.
essentially.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because this also could be something we eventually move off of YouTube and onto Zoom when we have more and more people joining during those 2 time slots. And the idea could be that when you make either of them. But then that would kind of involve us putting both of them on, not necessarily like one person has to be at both of them to facilitate it, right? Having people be able to come and bring their projects and do this process, right? Say what you're doing with that, in what we just did. So did I ask a question? Are we doing this 1 week 9 a.m., the other week 2 p.m. and going back and forth? That's what we're doing for now, right?
I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah. Does that
Okay.
not work for anyone?
Well, the point isn't, because the point is it shouldn't work for everyone, right? The point isn't
Right.
to have the same people at both of them. It's that, like, I can do both of them. So if you can do both of them, you're welcome at both of them. But the idea is, you know, that this one's happening every other week. So you come to this one every other week. That is what you're
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah,
doing.
that
I'm
sounds
more
great.
wondering, because there's so few of us, just is there anyone here that it doesn't work for, more to know who, like, just explicitly who we are sort of excluding by going to that time.
Yeah. Does it work for you, Sam? Can you come when it's at 2 p.m., which is in like 4 hours from now, is when it starts?
It'd be probably quite difficult, actually.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have anyone else looking to come for 2 p.m. So we could keep it at 9 a.m. for a few weeks and then possibly add a second time when there's enough people at this one that want to also have a different one.
Yeah.
We do that?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Let's
So
say
9
9 a.m. and then sort of give people like, hey, if you want a new time spot and you want to attend, reach out and we can do it 2 p.m.
And then maybe it's not 2 p.m. Maybe it's a different time that works for.
I like it.
And then people can, if they're rewatching for an hour, can also say, hey, I can't come at this time, but I could come if there was a 2 p.m. one, right? Or whatever time works for you. And then that is the sections we can open up for people who have projects or anything they want to come and create together. Maybe it doesn't fit under the word projects. Does anyone have any closing thoughts for today before we stop?
No, this was really fun, though. I haven't done it before, but yeah, it's nice to hear everyone's ideas and quite, what's the word? Encouraging, I suppose. Yeah.
It's nice having you on, Sam. You too, Shyla.
Thanks
I have
for
a
attending.
question.
Oh, sure.
Jubilee, you're doing every evening at 6 Pacific Standard Time, you're doing a live video somewhere. Where is it?
Yes, on the Jubilee Saves the World by Meandering Through Life YouTube channel. Every time I say it. And
That is the perfect
yes,
title.
my brother was on. We had the first one last night, and my brother was on with me. And so I would love if somebody wants to join me tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for doing that.
Is it just YouTube or is it on StreamYard or
It's on YouTube and Periscope
Periscope?
and through StreamYard. Yeah, same
Okay.
as.
Do you just, if I go to your YouTube channel, you'll have a link there?
Yeah. I don't know if I have it up yet, but yeah, the idea is probably also to put them up more than the day of. But I will try to get that going sooner.
I'm so bad for that.
I'll try to be there. I don't know if I can. but
Like
I'll-
tonight, I'm probably going to be by myself talking about the audience for 40 minutes, and we'll see what happens during that time. Point is just to keep showing up and having more and more people join.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Great.
Cheers, guys.
Anyone
Take care.
else?
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
We're ending the broadcast, guys.